welcome to Nicki Talks. Nicki Talks is a series of conversations that I'm honored to have with people in the community who lead really interesting lives and are doing really interesting things. This is the first time I've done it via Zoom, but because of the coronavirus lockdown, I am very happy to welcome Darrel Dench, who is a firefighter paramedic with the Gloucester Fire Department. Hi, Darrel.
Hi, Nicki.
Thanks a lot for agreeing to do this.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So this is funny in particular because we are across the street from each other as we are Zooming.
Yep.
Because Darrel and I are neighbors. But I've never actually talked to him about what he does, so I'm really curious to hear. So your position, what is your position at the Gloucester Fire Department? What does it mean to be a firefighter paramedic? I can't say that. Firefighter paramedic. There we go.
Basically, well, as a firefighter, you know, we're the fire suppression aspect of it is where, you know, we put out fires, basically.
Yeah.
But as on the other side, as a paramedic, we do advanced life support. You know, with the city's rescue squads and basically fire suppression, the medical emergency aspects of it, search and rescue. There's a long list of things that we do.
Yeah, I think most people don't know that list. I certainly don't.
Yeah, a lot of people get confused that, you know, everybody knows what firefighters do. I think people don't really know the difference between like what a basic EMT does and what a paramedic does. Basic EMTs are just able to do just basic treatments, you know, trauma bandages and, you know, basic life support. But as paramedics, we have a multitude of medications. We can do cardiac monitoring. We have, you know, cardiac medications. We do a lot in the field. We're basically a mobile emergency room.
And so in the field, that's the mobile part. So could you, I mean, do you resuscitate, did you say? Like, do you do the paddles?
Well,
what do I know, right?
The paddles went away quite a few years ago. But as far as you're talking about defibrillation.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah.
There are actually adhesive pads that we put on now. We don't do the paddles anymore. Back in the day, that's what we used to do, but now it's their adhesive pads that we put on. They stay on the patient. That way we can monitor what's going on with them, you know, from cardiac aspect, you know, if there's any rhythms, if there's, so.
And I'm assuming you don't intubate people.
Yes, we do.
Oh, you do intubate people. So you really do have like a full emergency room on wheels, basically.
Yes, we do transcutaneous pacing, we do defibrillation, we do cardioversion, we intubate, there's medications, we have pain management, we do quite a lot.
And so another thing that's always been confusing to me, and I think to a lot of people, is you know, if somebody were to call 911 and it was not related to a fire, let's say, but there might be, I don't know what, an overdose or even a coronavirus emergency or childbirth, or, you know, all kinds of things can happen. Is that something that as a firefighter paramedic you would go to? We
go to any and every medical emergency as a paramedic. And from the non-EMS part of it, the non, you know, medical part, we smoke alarms, you know, fire inspections, fires themselves, brush fires, search and rescue. We do that as well. But from the medical aspect for it, anything from stub toes to cardiac arrest, we go. That's what we're here for. We're here 24/7. We have all of the outskirt stations are all open now.
Yeah.
And we're able to respond within minutes, you know, to anything and everywhere inside the city.
So you mean outskirt? You mean like Bayview and like Magnolia or whatever like that?
Bayview, Magnolia, and West Gloucester is where I currently work. So I'm out of the West Gloucester station right now.
Oh, okay.
And our current staffing right now, we have a paramedic on board every piece of apparatus, and all of our engine companies are all carrying all the advanced life support equipment on it now. So if there's
Everything vehicle.
yes, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, aside from our ladder truck, all
Yeah.
of the engines or the pump trucks all carry ALS equipment on it. And we're usually staffed to the point to where we have a paramedic on every piece now. So when there's 2 firefighters in Bayview, there's typically 1 paramedic on that truck. Not all the time, but for the most part. So that way that, we're able to get to the patient and start advanced life support, as quickly as possible, which is huge. There's not a lot of communities that have that
That's
available
really
to them.
great.
We're fortunate that we have the department that we have, and we have the staffing that we have, and there's been a lot of changes over in the last 20 years with everything, and it's really good.
Yeah. Well, that should be really reassuring to people. I mean, that's really good to hear about, our community and the response like that.
Yeah, it's being able to respond in a timely manner is paramount in any emergency.
Yeah. Life-saving.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah. And so, so how many vehicles did you say?
Currently, right now, we have engine 1, ladder 1, rescue 1, and rescue 2 are out of headquarters. Obviously, the engine is a pump truck and pumps the water. The ladder truck is a ladder truck, and we have the 2 rescue squads. West Gloucester, there's an engine. Bayview, there's an engine, and in Magnolia, there's an engine.
And how many people? Are there any volunteer firefighters in the Gloucester?
Not in the city. We're a professional fire department, so
everybody is on the staff.
Yes, we're paid. There's no volunteers. The NFPA sets standards on population and how many firefighters is needed to effectively fight a fire in that town based on square mileage and stuff. So we're a professional fire department, so there's no volunteers in Gloucester.
And what is that NFPA? What does that stand for?
NFPA, they set the standards for pretty much our guidelines to how many personnel we need to effectively fight a fire per the population and per the square mileage, and we follow their guidelines on what's recommended, and that's how we staff our department, is what their recommendations are in there.
And so how many people do work? How many people are on the staff there?
Staffed right now, I believe we're at 66. We're usually staffed at 72, but just due to retirements and stuff, and trying to, it's a long process for the hiring process to get us up to, there's a test that has to be taken. So right now we're at 66. Yeah. And on a good day with no vacations and nobody outs, there's usually 22 people. But our minimum staffing per shift is 18 members.
Oh, okay. And are you on some sort of a shift rotation, or do you pretty much do the same shift all the time?
We're on a rotating schedule, and it's kind of a complicated one because we just recently changed it. We do 24-hour shifts. Yeah. Oh. And then we either have 2 or 3 days off, depending on how that shift rotation is going. Yep. And we're there. That's our second home.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, what it's been like over the past few months, like since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, just locally, what's your experience been like as a first responder?
I think it's from a firefighter and a paramedic perspective. I think it's just how it started off everywhere. It kind of built steam over time, and at first it just started out with as a small thing, which grew into where we're currently at today. As far as we go on an operational basis, we've had to change what we do day to day tenfold on. So it's been pretty hectic on our day-to-day operations and how we operate. It's been a complete change for us. not so much on how we treat patients or what we do in the field, but just as, internally as a department,
Yeah, that makes
with
sense.
decontamination and how we
Yeah.
respond to calls and, call taking and, things of that nature has completely changed for us. And I think they'll probably be changed that way forever,
Mhm.
because it
Like the
usually takes,
personal protection and all that sort of stuff, right?
well, we always use PPE,
Yeah,
nothing to this extent.
yeah,
But we always have used, gloves and face masks and gowns when needed for other medical calls.
yeah,
In the firefighting aspect of it, obviously we have, our turnout gear and, breathing apparatus,
yeah,
and that kind
yeah.
of goes without saying. But as far as us, donning this PPE for, a common respiratory emergency, we just didn't do that in the past because, obviously there was this COVID-19 wasn't around, or we were
Right,
unaware of it at the time. But
right,
um,
right.
just how we operate has been flipped upside down, and I think those changes are going to be around for quite a while for us,
Mhm.
just so we can protect ourselves and we can protect our patients as well.
So if you were to go to an overdose call, let's say, and you have to administer Narcan, you would be suited up, so to speak. I mean, you'd have on a lot of PPE to go in and have a physical interaction with somebody who might be overdosing.
Yes, we're treating pretty much every medical call right now as it's a potential COVID case.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so there's face masks, eye protection, gloves, stuff that we would normally wear on a medical call.
Hmm.
Um, the gowns are, if we'll gown up, and that's what we consider our full PPE is when we're gowned up. Um, but something like that, we're treating basically every medical cause as a potential COVID patient.
And have you had to respond to people in distress as a result of COVID?
Um, as a COVID patient, yes, yeah, pretty much on a daily basis we have them.
Ah, yeah,
We have confirmed cases and we have suspected cases,
yeah. Do
and
you
we treat
test?
them. What's that?
Do you test? Like, would you test on the truck?
No, we have certain criteria of questions that we go through, and it starts with when you call 911 in the city, it goes right to the police department. They're the call taker, so they go through a gamut of questions that they, and then they relay that information to us. And if it meets a criteria, if it's a suspected case or if it's a confirmed case, um, that's part of our call taking. Now, that's another thing that's changed for us. It's just how we answer calls.
Yeah.
And um, once that process starts to happen, then that's, we still respond the same manner. It's just that there's more questions and there's more preparation before we actually get to the patient now than there has been in the past.
Hmm. And the COVID patients are, for the most part, locally. They're at Beverly Hospital. Is that right?
Um, you mean where they would get transported to, or yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
any confirmed COVID case will go right to Beverly
Yeah.
because Addison and Gilbert, as great as they are, they just don't have the capabilities to
Yeah.
support the staff that it takes to treat a COVID patient and the facility itself. So you need extra staffing, you need contaminated, isolated rooms, and it's overwhelming
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
for any facility, for
Right.
any first responder as well.
Right. Right. So, how has your? I mean, I'm curious here about how it's made a difference for you, just personally, in terms of your. Well, it's just kind of like everything's kind of elevated. I mean, everybody's awareness, everybody's fear level, and there's a sense of, anxiety so much. And so that must impact you both personally and professionally, I would think.
It does. I mean, at the fire station, we're a big family, and we're used to sitting down together. We're used to, um, spending 24 hours with,
Yeah.
a group of men and women, and we have dinner together, we have breakfast together, and just that small portion of us going in and not being able to spend, sit down and have a meal with everybody, and then we isolate ourselves during the day. It's
Yeah.
the fire department's always been basically about, the firefighters. It's family,
Yeah.
and to have to isolate yourself from that it's a huge change for us.
That is huge. That is.
And just the worry of, what's going to happen during the day, and then coming home,
Coming home. Yeah.
because we all have families,
Yeah.
and we're worried about, what we do in the fields, and bringing that home
Yeah.
to family.
I'm
And
sure
that's
you
been,
take a huge amount of precautions around that.
yeah, I mean, that's been the case, since I started in EMS in,
Mm.
in 1989, is that I would bring something home to somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
even more so now. So
Yeah.
we're extra diligent. We're changing our uniforms
Yeah.
before we come home. There's a lot that's changed. It's impacted us, personally. And
Yeah.
there's always questions. It's like, what happened last night? My wife will ask me, what did you do last night, or was there any,
Yeah.
So there's been a lot to it that's processed through people personally, through the department, and there has been stress. I mean, we're human beings too.
Yeah. Right. Right. And you have such
We're
huge responsibilities. I mean, that just adds
right.
on. And I'm sure you're used to that. I realize that, this is your line of work, and you've been doing it for how long have you been doing it?
I've been on the department since 2009,
Okay.
but I've been in EMS since 1989.
And where did you do that? Where did you do that with?
I actually started here in Gloucester.
Oh, you did?
I got my EMT right as I was getting out of high school,
Oh,
and I moved back here, and I got a job at Beauport Ambulance,
yeah. Yeah.
and that's what I've done ever since.
Oh,
I love the job so much, and I love the schedule, and it's pretty much all I've done.
and you added the fire department part?
Yep, I did.
Yeah.
After quite a number of years of private EMS.
Yeah.
My father was a firefighter. My grandfather was a firefighter in the city. My uncles were firefighters. So there's a legacy there. So
There is. Yeah. Was your father the fire chief at one point?
my father was the fire chief. Yep.
What's his name? What's his
Phil.
name?
Phil Dench.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's retired.
Yeah.
He had a full career, and my uncle Morris was a firefighter in the 40s, and my grandfather was actually a call firefighter here in town. They had call firefighters. So
That's a
there's
volunteer? No.
yes, they actually at one point in time Gloucester was basically a half paid department, and the other half were basically volunteers. And that was in the 40s, before the population was half of what it is now.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, there's a long legacy in my family.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So
Yeah, that's really amazing. So you feel, I'm assuming, but just by the way you're talking, that you have been really happy, with that decision to join the fire department.
it's you'll every firefighter will say it's the best job in the world, and it truly is the best job in the world. Just the camaraderie, the second family that we have. There's not a lot of jobs that you can go into where you can say, this is my second family, and really mean it. We all have each other's backs all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime, like off duty, somebody needs something, all you have to do is call, and we'll go there. So it truly is a family, and it's the best career decision that I've ever made, to become a firefighter.
Yeah. Well, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah. That's really great. And so I'm assuming, I worked for many years with survivors of domestic violence. So I was always kind of on that edge of hearing a lot of stuff and seeing a lot of stuff and hearing a lot of difficult stories. So I kind of know what it feels like to feel a little fried around the edges from, just dealing with the human condition often at its worst. How do you manage that? Like, you must have times where you just either you've seen maybe somebody's died, or maybe you saw a really ill child. I mean, something that just kind of went a little bit past your protective layer. How do you manage that?
Um, it's it takes us a certain person to be able to do the job that we do and to be able to come home and live a normal life without letting that seep in and consume you. Um, some people have that coming through the door, and some people that has to, it's over time and over experience and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, it's been there was actually quite a while where I thought that there was something wrong with me because I would come home after seeing tragedy at work.
Right.
Just, I mean, the worst possible case scenarios you could imagine. Um, and being able to go right back to the station and go right back to bed and sleep right afterwards. And that's just something that you learn to compartmentalize things, and
Yeah. Yeah.
not because you want to, but because you have to be able to function after that. So you
Hmm.
take all that bad stuff and you put it in a box, and you kind of put that box away on a shelf, and it kind of empties itself over time.
Hmm.
But there's always those calls that you do that no matter what you, they always stick in your mind
Yeah.
vividly. And there's been a number of those that still, that happened years and years ago that I
Yeah.
still remember like vividly.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I'm sure, I mean, I think it's, like my work, there's certain stories that might bother a certain person more than they would bother the next for whatever reason, because we're vulnerable in different kinds of ways.
yeah.
That's a
Um,
good metaphor. I like the box where it kind of slowly over time, sifts out of the bottom and goes away.
yeah. And for the longest time, I thought that that was okay, and that was a normal thing to do and a normal mental state to be in. But then I was thinking, maybe I'm just, a robot, and I
Yeah.
kind of treat people like, um, I was an auto mechanic, and somebody brought me their car with a problem, and it was my job to fix that and just to give them back their car and then take the next one. So
Yep.
I've kind of had to do that over the years just to be able to function as a normal person, I think. And
Hmm.
you kind of get that mindset that you're there to do a job. You have to be compassionate while you're doing that job, but you can't let the events rule, overtake you mentally. So you have to learn whatever you need to do to get rid of that stress, whether it's through exercise or
Yeah. Yeah.
just doing something to break that thought process so you can be able to go out and do your job the next time you go to work. And
Yeah.
it takes a long time to build that up and learn how to function
Yeah. I think
as
you're right.
a EMT or as a firefighter or a police officer or any of that.
Yep.
So
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
it's definitely a taught condition that
Yeah.
you have to acquire over time.
Well, and there certainly are a lot of different names for when somebody's really struggling, like compassion fatigue or secondary trauma. I mean, those are
Yeah.
all very real for you on a day-to-day basis, I'm sure. And then you have to have, you do have to have the ability to get up the next day and go back with the same level of energy and compassion and focus that you had the day before when you had an experience that was difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
And it takes time to be able to do that.
Yeah.
As and because I've come home and told stories to my wife about
Yep.
what happened the night before,
Yep.
and I could see it in her face that
Yeah.
she's say, oh my god, how
Yeah.
did how did you deal with that? And it's like, I did my job.
Did your
And
job, right?
it's I don't try to give her all of the information. I just try to give her little bits and pieces, so it doesn't make it, in the way that I express that is like I make it seem like it's not really that big of a deal to me.
Well, you're probably trying
Um,
to protect her a little bit.
right. But a few years ago, one of my friends was in a motorcycle accident, and I captured that. I had a GoPro camera on my helmet, and I captured that whole incident
Oh.
film. And I brought that film back and was going through it, and he was almost killed, and he was a firefighter at the with the fire department. So I came back and was watching the video footage after the accident, after he got flown to Mass General, and
Yeah.
my wife said, I want to see that. And I said, you don't want to see this. She's like, no, I want to see it. So I showed her the video, and halfway through it, she started to cry.
Yeah.
And I said, I told you didn't want to see that. She's like, no, I want to keep watching. So after the video was over, she's like, I'm not crying because I saw it. And she knew my friend that was in the accident.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm not crying because I saw him in pain or saw him injured. She's like, I don't even know who you are right now. She's like, that's a side of you I've never seen. The way that you did what you had to do, the way you interact with everybody, and just the decisions that you made. She's like, I've never seen that before. You've never told me about that. She's like, you know,
Yeah.
I don't I don't know you in that aspect. So there's a lot that goes in with this job that you have to do, that you can only bring so much back and explain to somebody.
Yeah.
Again, it's a learned experience over time, just like something that's you just do. You know, that's how we work, and that's how we maintain our sanity, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I always think that there's, you know, the more compassion you bring to your work, the more
Yeah.
vulnerable you are. But you
Right.
need to have that compassion, and you also need to have the other side of it, which is what you do to protect yourself and heal from your experiences that have been, you
Right.
know, traumatic, probably for the most part.
Yeah.
So
I've always said that being a paramedic is 90% just being a person,
yeah,
and the 10% is medicine
heal.
and equipment and stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Just being able to go in and talk to somebody and just set them at ease is, you know, makes all the difference in the world.
yeah. It's interesting because I worked for a while with a paramedic, and he described himself as an adrenaline junkie, and
Mm.
he felt like that was you know, like one of the hazards of the job, that he, you know, if he had just sort of a routine call where there wasn't anything really dramatic happening, he sometimes had this like ho hum response to it. It was an interesting conversation to have because I don't know anything about it, but for him to say that his highest energy came when the emergency level was really elevated was
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Over the years, I try to do the complete opposite. I try not to have that adrenaline
Yeah,
up here. I try to keep it as low as I possibly can, so I can.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, it's healthier for
That's
you.
I mean that's what keeps a lot of people in this field too, is they like um, that the not knowing, and you know, being there for other people in time of need, and
Yeah,
that's what keeps, you know, them in the job.
yeah.
And I say that's what's kept me doing it for as long as I've been doing it. But
Hmm. Hmm.
um,
Yeah,
now I try to keep it as low profile and
yeah,
stress free, calm as I possibly can in a bad situation.
yeah. Well, that's good self-care, and it does keep you going, I bet.
Yeah.
So, we only have a minute or two left, but I wanted to ask, I guess, a couple of things. How do you, how would you advise somebody who felt like they were in an emergency? How do you feel like people have a good idea of when it's time to call 911? I mean, that's always
Um,
a critical thing for people.
I think it varies from person to person. Um, when you're calling 911 for a fire or a motor vehicle accident that you witnessed, or a power outage, or
Yeah,
anything like that, it's kind of, you know, it's kind of a no-brainer. But we there's a lot of people that they call 911 for all of the right reasons.
hmm,
Um, there's not really, I don't know, it's there's not really, you know, a reason not to call 911, I suppose. But
that's good.
there's
That's a
stuff
good message.
that
Yeah,
if you can go and bring something to your primary care physician, or um, there's the new Minute Clinic up at um, Gloucester Crossing now, has
right.
a lot of resources. We're always here. We're here
Yeah,
24/7,
yeah,
65 days a year.
yeah,
Um, anytime that somebody feels as though that they need that, then that's what we're there for.
Yeah.
And it varies from person to person.
Yeah.
Obviously, some 911 calls are better left for, your primary care physician or other things, but there's more so that's, there's people that call when they should have called, and there's people that call when they probably could have, cleared it up with their physician or at the
Yeah.
minute clinic, or
Yeah.
that didn't really warrant that response. But
Yeah. But that's okay.
We're not here to make that judgment. If people call because they feel as though that's what they need, then that's, we're going to respond regardless.
Yeah. That's the message. That's good. So lastly, what is your, is there anything that you would share with people about your take on the virus and the whole, because you're out in the environment, you're seeing what people are going through, you get an idea of the numbers that are happening locally. So what would be your feeling for yourself and your own family, around the virus in terms of the reopening and all that stuff? What is your take on that?
I think it's going to be a slow process. I think it's going to take more time than people actually think.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I think that the way that we operate as a community, as a world, is completely changed from this point out. I think the way that we go about and do things is going to be different. I'm always going to go back to, the good resources, the CDC, and physicians that are, doing the research and going through reputable sources and see what they're saying. As far as, day-to-day operations for us or for anybody else, just social distancing and hand washing, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
It's something that's going to take a lot of time. It's not going to be a quick thing. The new normal will be, getting a vaccination will be paramount.
Yeah.
But up until that point, I think that things are going to be, I think it's still going to be a slow process.
Yeah. It's hard for people to really accept that, apparently.
It is.
I mean, I socially distant, I wear a mask, I wash my hands. That's just what I do now. I mean, that's what we should be doing now, period.
Right.
But I don't know.
I mean, listen to the reputable sources and what they're saying.
Here, I vote for that too. I really agree with that.
But I think it's going to be a slow process. I think it's going to be, take a lot of time, and it's hopefully, things will get back. And if not, I mean, we'll be okay. As a society, we'll be okay as a community. We'll be okay as a fire department. We'll be okay as schools, and we'll find a way to push through no matter what happens.
Yeah. It just takes a while.
It's everybody's outside of their comfort zone right now, and there's a lot of people that are out of work and financially strapped, and there's a lot, and it's it's not going to be a fast thing to get back to the normal.
If ever, what we knew as normal anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Normal will be different.
It will. Well, thank you so much, Darrel. I really appreciate your coming on the show.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your, just sharing what you have shared with us. It really means a lot for people to hear what you do. And thank you for your work. So thank you for your service to our community.
It's my pleasure. It really, truly is.
Okay. Well, stay well, Darrel. I'd shake your hand if I could.
I'll high five you from the window outside.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay. See you soon.
All right, Nicki, thank you.
Okay.